Sampling is one of the important aspects in nursing research. So, as the word says, sampling, we can understand there is sample in it. Sampling is a process, it's a step by step process where the researcher, maybe it's a nursing researcher or a medical researcher, or even the research in any different groups, or in even the education field, in any field, in social related research, we can collect samples. We have to collect samples because we cannot do the research on the whole population. For example, if the population means all the students of high school, it is the population. So we'll select some students from a selected area where we are able to go and collect the data. So they become the samples. So another example for sample is all the antenatal mothers in all over India, and from that or from the place where you are staying, all the whole district antenatal mothers, we cannot collect the data. So what we will do, we take sample and we take a smaller group of people, and then we will collect the data from them, and then after that we will see to that we will generalize the findings. So that is sampling, very very helpful. So if you see the definition, it is the process of selecting representative units of a population for study in a research. So here what we are going to do, we are going to select the representative units. So from where we are selecting the representative units? From the population. So from population we are selecting the representative units, and already I told you it is a process. It is a process here. It's process of selecting a representative units from the overall population. Okay, and in the research we are usually collecting this type of sample so that the research will happen easily. We cannot do the whole research on the population. It is a process of selecting a subset of population, a small group of population, in order to obtain information regarding a way that represents the entire population. So the sample itself is very important because whatever the data we collect from them, it represents the whole population. So that is how it is. Next one, if you see further, so to understand sampling, we have to remember the keywords are, it is the process and population. From the population, the units have been selected. So it is selecting, it's a process of selecting representative units of population for study in a research. So we can easily say it's a process where we are collecting the units, representative units. What kind of units? Representative units that will represent the whole population. For what purpose? For the purpose of study. So this is called sampling. So further if we see, it is the process of selecting a sample from the target population. So we are not selecting from any groups, but we are focusing on the target population. Target population means the group which is the which is having the samples of which we are going to study for. So whom we can easily approach. So target population is the target population. So what do we mean by target population? It consists of total group of people or objects meeting the designated set of criteria of interest to the researcher. So it consists of the total group of people. All the group of people are there in it, and then they are having the criteria which we are looking for the aspect of, from the aspect of research. So the target population is having one main important thing is, it is having the set of criteria. We call it a set of criteria which are look like, which are expected by the researcher. So here we can understand target population as it consists the total group of people. It consists the total group of people where it has the set of criteria which the researcher is looking for. So that is the meaning of target population. Next one is population. So if you see what is population, as I was telling in sampling also, there is population. So now we'll see what is population. It is the total group of individual people or things meeting the designation a criteria of interest to the researcher from that sample in which they are going to select. So sampling population means what? Here we are having the overall group from which the samples has been taken out. So if you see here, it is the total group of individuals or people, individual people or things which are having the criteria which we are looking for. That the overall group is called as sample. From that we are going to take a part, that is a sample, and the process is sampling. The process is sampling. The group which is taken out of the population is called sample, and the overall group is called as population. Sampling is a smaller part of the population selected in such a way that the individual in the sample represents the characteristics of population. It should represent the characteristics of the population. So it's the process we are going to take out. Sampling is a smaller part of the population. That is, the sample is a smaller part of the population. So let us move on to the next aspect. So the main terminologies under the nursing research are the population. It refers to the total category of persons or objects that meets criteria for the study established by the researcher. Any set persons, objects or measurements having an observable characteristics in common. So if you see what is population, it is overall group, the overall group, and it is meeting the criteria which we are expecting. So that makes the point clear what is population. Next is target population, refers to the population that the researcher wishes to study, the population about which the researcher wishes to make generalization. That is the entire set of cases about which the researcher would like to make generalization. Example have given BSc nursing student. Next is accessible population. It is an aggregate of cases which conform to the designated criteria and to which accessible the researcher as a pool of subjects for the study. That is, that aggregate must meet the criteria for inclusion in the study, and that is available to the researcher or investigator. Accessible means who are actually available for the researcher. So they, that is the main aspect of accessible population. So here we are having a group of people who are having the designated criteria how the researcher is expecting, like and to which the accessible and to which the accessible the researcher as a pool of subjects. So to make complicated, from books it is given like this, but try to remember accessible population is nothing but they are having the exact criteria which the researcher is expecting and to include them in the study. Okay, and they are also available to the researcher. They are available. So this is very important. They have to be available to the researcher. If we are not able to reach them or access them or meet them, we cannot collect any data. So they have to be available for the researcher. Next is sampling frame. Sampling frame, it is a units or group of cluster. It's a group or cluster of such units may form the basis of sampling process, in which case they are called sampling units or a sampling frame. A list containing all such sampling units is known as sampling frame. For example, I told you high school children in India. So all the state is having high school children. So children of all the higher states, children of all the states, high school children. Okay, and that will become sampling frame. From that, which state you are going to select. So that is a sample. So sample population is all the high school children, and from that you're going to pick one group, and there are many sampling units present in the population. So that present the like, you know, the collection of the sampling units, or the collection of the same kind of units, sample units are there, no, that becomes the sampling frame. From that sampling frame you will draw a sample. To make easily understand what is population, under inside that is the sampling frame, inside that is the sample that we need, and from them we'll take the response. This is the pictorial representation of population, sampling frame and sample. And then sample design, it is different definite plan for obtaining a sample form, sample from the sampling frame. So what is happening here, we are taking the samples with the proper plan. So we are having a plan to take the sample from the sampling frame. That plan, the definite plan of getting the samples, is called as sample design. It is a technique or the procedure, okay, the researcher adopts in selecting the sampling units. So if we are about to collect the sample from the population, what design are we going to use, what plan we are going to use, okay, what technique we are going to use, this one, and the technique, okay, what technique we are going to use, that will uh, be called as sample design. Okay, next is sampling error. Sampling error, the accuracy that occurs during the selection of the small portion from the population. So what do we say, it is the accuracy, it is accuracy that occurs during the selection of small portion from the population. uh, Sorry, the inaccuracy that occurs. So inaccuracy means we are going to select the sample, but there is some mistakes that happen, some inappropriate aspect that happens, that inaccuracy. So that inaccuracy is called as sampling error. So sampling distribution is the way it is present in the population. So if you see, sampling distribution means in this picture. So in this picture, population is having the sampling frame, okay, and how we are selecting the samples from this sampling frame is the sample design, and then sampling error is the inaccuracy that occurs while we are selecting the samples from this particular population. So that is called a sampling error. So till now we have seen population, sampling, sample, and then we have also seen accessible population, target population, okay, sampling frame, okay, this picture, and then next we'll move on to advantages. Why do we need to do sampling? It will help us to keep the expenditure less, that is, we tell it as economy in expenditure, we can keep the expenditure less, that's why we will do sampling. Next one is economy in time. So what is the meaning of economy in time? It is time saving, no, if not we have to sit and keep collecting data from all the people all over the whole group, it is impossible. So it is economy in time, so consumes less time, and easily we can collect the data from the selected samples out of the population, and then we can collect the data from them. Helps in reducing time, okay, greater scope. So sample simplifies the things, and personnel with little training can also collect the and handle the data. So when we're starting as a new researcher, the sampling will help us to have much scope. No, we can easily collect the data, even though a person has not got much deeper training, but they can collect the data and do the research. There is greater scope and flexibility of studies when a sample is used. Greater accuracy. So when we see greater accuracy, because collecting the sample, the sampling ensures completeness, it ensures completeness and a high degree of accuracy. So it has accuracy and completeness, ensures completeness and high degree of accuracy. So when we are collecting the data from the samples, and this process, no, 'cause this sampling is very accurate and much better because it will be the part of the population, and due to limited area of focus, due to sample, the volume of work is reduced, so there is less mistakes tend to happen if you use sampling. Next advantage is organization of convenience. Sampling involves very few organizational problems. Due to small members, it does not need any vast facilities, economical in respect to resources. Convenience, easily it is possible to collect the data from the smaller group. Intensive and exhaustive, as a number is limited, it is possible to collect intensive and exhaustive data. Intensive means detailed data we can collect. Exhaustive means the data which will collected will be very useful. Okay, suitable in limited resource. Sampling helps researcher to work with less resources. Though they are not required to have a team if you have to do with a limited number of samples, and the team gets built up based on if the research is much bigger with higher number of samples and all. So it is suitable in limited resources. With small group itself we can complete the research. Better rapport. Developing rapport with large groups is difficult, but with small group selected samples it is easy. Instead of reaching to the population it's harder, but reaching the sample is much easier compared to that of the population. So this is about the this is about the sampling. Advantages. Disadvantages, there can be chances of bias. Bias means, just understand, it is like the personal opinion has come in selection. So if we do sampling, some chances are there are a type of sampling where we use our personal opinion. For example, the convenience sampling, purposive sampling, where we are using our selection criteria and will purposely choose the samples for our convenience. Difficult and disadvantage of sampling is difficult in getting representative supply. If some particular study is done, getting a small group for that particular population becomes very hard. Like HIV cases, suddenly we cannot go and find out HIV cases all around easily, so it takes time. So in such scenario we have to use convenience sampling. We cannot go for any random sampling and all. Need for specialized knowledge. It requires knowledge while doing that, which type of sampling is good for which study we have to be thorough with. Impossibility of sampling. When population is very small, then heterogeneous means different group kind of things, we cannot do sampling in such kind of situation. So these are the disadvantages of sampling. If you see characteristics of good sampling, good sample is, it should it good sample is one which within restrictions imposed by its size, will reproduce characteristics of population with the greatest possible accuracy. So it should be of the same as that of the population, and it should be free from error. It should not have any kind of error or bias, because of the bias or any kind of selection problems. It should be free from random sampling error. Randomly we are selecting the samples, error should be minimized. It should not suffer from incomplete coverage. Okay, it should not ignore the failure in the sample in responding to its study. Like people should not leave in the middle of the study. It should not give incomplete coverage. Relatively small samples properly selected may be much more reliable. So if sample size itself you are taking too big, no, it's difficult again. It becomes almost like a population. So right type of size has to be decided and take properly with the proper proper adequate size we have to decide on. In the sample, only such units should be included which are far as possible are independent. Okay, independent samples can be collected which are independent in the given group. No, next, the sampling process takes 7 steps. We have to define what is population. We have to identify and specify the sampling frame, specify sampling unit, specify sampling methods of measurement, determine sample size, specify sampling plan, select the sample. Sampling frame means we have to identify the frame, and the sampling unit means which unit we are going to select. And this method is specify sampling method of measurement, which type we are going to which type of sampling we are going to use. We have to specify that. We have to determine the sample size. We have to fix how much number of samples are required based on the type of study, based on the statistical outlook. We can select the sample. Specify sampling plan. How are we going to select the sample? We have to be having the plan for that, and then we'll finally select the sample. Thank you. For the in the next video you will be explained about methods or types of sampling. So there are probability and non-probability, both are having five types. So in the next video we will have this as part 2 of sampling. Thank you.